opportunity. Thank you guys for coming out. We wanted to, my job is basically, I'm the attorney that filed the lawsuit. So I want to give you an idea of what we filed in the lawsuit and what we're asking for. As you all are aware, Alcee Hastings passed away on the 6th of April. And as of yet, the governor has not declared or decided to have a special election. So the lawsuit is essentially just asking him to do what he's required to do. We're asking a court to ask him to set a special election. As you know, Alcee Hastings was in District 20, which is predominantly an African-American district. He's a Democrat as well. And he's won hands down outstanding victories all, throughout his time in office. There's a lot of legislation going on right now pending in the Senate that we need to have a representative there for the 20th district. Otherwise, our voices are not heard. There's gerrymandering going on. There's the George Floyd legislation pending. And with the close margins in the Senate, we need to have somebody there that represents our district. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Dowling.
Good morning, everyone. My name is the Reverend Elvin Dowling, and I stand before you today to officially announce my candidacy for the United States Congress by suing the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. I grew up not too far from here on the corner of Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard and Tamarind Avenue, in what is now an abandoned building. When I looked out my front window, what I saw was a Church's Fried Chicken. When I looked out the back window, it was a funeral home. Imagine that. But in this same neighborhood, which was a very tough community, we lived by a code. And that code was this crazy notion that you do what you said you were gonna do. That you keep your word. That you say what you mean, and you mean what you say. Or as the younger folk would say, word is bond. That's what's up. And if Florida is to be a state that is as good as its word, then she must start by keeping her promise. And if the Sunshine State that I know and love, the very idea of democracy itself, one person, one vote, is only as good as its promise. Today, however, that very concept is under assault by a man whose lips are silent, but his actions are dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. A man who is willing to sacrifice the rights of 800,000 people in his own state, the majority of whom are Black, Latino, and Democratic. And he's willing to do this for a deal with dark forces that are eager to disenfranchise the people of this great district. If you don't believe me, just look at the bill that he's getting ready to sign right now to further oppress the right to vote in this state. So we've come here today. We've come to dramatize a situation that requires immediate injunctive relief. We call today upon the justices of this great court to stand with us as we stand before a wall of opposition that starts in the Florida's governor's mansion and stretches all the way right here to South Florida. DeSantis's wall of oppression is one that stands between the people of West Palm Beach having a voice this session in Congress when the American Jobs Plan comes up for a vote. This bill is one of the most consequential pieces of legislation in generations. It's a bill that could mean more local jobs in Fort Lauderdale, to employ electricians and laborers, to rebuild this country by retrofitting our houses, repaving our roads, using the strength and ingenuity from people right here at home. DeSantis's wall of depression is blocking the blessings of families in Riviera Beach who are depending on work that can come through the American Infrastructure Plan. to do things like upgrade the nation's crumbling roads and bridges, strengthening local landmarks like the Port of Palm Beach and the Singer Island Bridge, employing local people with local jobs for such a time as this. And finally, DeSantis' wall of suppression spans out to the Glades, stopping the people of the Tri-Cities Coalition from choosing a representative who will vote to support the American Families Plan, a plan that will provide universal, quality preschool for children who need it most in Pahokee and South Bay, a plan that will allow the parents of high school students in Tamarack and Miramar and Oakland Park to rest easy knowing that their country and their state has their back, will keep its promise, guaranteeing their children 2 years of free college tuition through the passage of this historic legislation. Make no mistake about it, a lot is on the ballot with this upcoming election. The problem is, we don't know when that is. So we charge Ron DeSantis today. We charge Ron DeSantis with being the biggest civil rights violator in this state. We charge Ron DeSantis with being the biggest vote suppressor in this state. We charge Ron DeSantis with being the biggest bully in this state. But let it be known that when the people stand together, even giants like big Ron DeSantis can be defeated, because the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So I invite you today, if you're listening to me, to join with me. Go to dowlingforthepeople.com and do what you can to help us take the fight to Ron DeSantis. But not just to Ron DeSantis, help us take this fight all the way to the halls of Washington, D.C. And finally, to you, Mr. DeSantis, if you seek equal rights for all Floridians, Mr. DeSantis, call the election. If you seek to make Florida a better place to live and learn for everybody, Mr. DeSantis, do the right thing. Mr. DeSantis, if you don't want to see me in court, tear down your wall. I thank you all very much, and we're going to have a few more people who are going to share their thoughts with us. So next I'm going to call up my friend Ron Matzner, who is president of Palm Beach Indivisibles, to share a few words. Mr. Matzner?
Thank you, Ellen. My name is Ronald Matzner. I am the president of Palm Beach Indivisibles, a nonpartisan nonprofit with over 2,400 members in Palm Beach County. As proponents of good government, we stand with Elvin Dowling and the people of Florida District 20 today. Good government enables voting. Denying the vote is not good government. It is voter suppression, plain and simple. America is a representative democracy. The recent unfortunate passing of Representative Alcee Hastings calls for a special election to fill the Florida 20 seat in Washington. Yet Governor DeSantis has thus far failed to heed that call for no reason other than burnishing his own base 2022 and 2024 election prospects. In his cynical calculation, denial of the opportunity to timely vote for Representative Hastings' successor and the resulting loss of representation in Washington for almost 800,000 Floridians, including many of our Palm Beach Indivisible members, for the next year and a half would be nothing more than collateral damage. In fact, it constitutes big-time voter suppression, Florida style, and a further erosion of democratic norms.
Thank you, Ron. I'm going to call on next one of our local ministers, Reverend J.R. Thicklin, who's going to share a few words. Reverend Thicklin?
Thank you so much, Mr. Dowling. Good morning. We've come to a very crucial time in this state as we have in this country. all of us are in the midst of things that we've never seen. So that means that we have to do the things that we know to do in order that all people are included. We have a challenge here, and the challenge is very simple. We cannot mute or silence the voices of nearly 800,000 people. This is no time to play political chess, no time to run out the clock, because when it's all said and done, people are still suffering, people are still hurting. The seat of the late Congressman Alcee Hastings is very important for this reason. Not only his legacy is at stake, but the people that he served. We don't have time to play the political games that literally disadvantage even the voice of the people. Now, when it goes well with the righteous, my scripture says, the city rejoiceth. When it goes well with the state of Florida, in particular this district, the people rejoice. There are a lot of things that are in place right now that is passed down through Washington. But if we don't have our representative in place to be able to lend their voice and be the voice of the people, then you have disenfranchised all of these people. So it's incumbent upon us, and we say to our governor that you are the governor of the state of Florida, not just your special interests. And so I like to say that we must stand together, we must join together, and we must demand, go ahead and set the date. Let's move forward, and let's not maneuver in a sense of silence, once again suppressing the votes of the people, the voices of the people, and hurting people that needs help during this time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Reverend Thicklin. One of the things that we want to make sure that we communicate today is the fact that we want an election without delay. We don't want Ron DeSantis to do this, to call the election tomorrow. We don't want him to wait till next week. We don't want him to wait till next month. We want him to call an election today. We demand justice today. We need representation today. We call on him to do what's right today. With that being said, I'm going to call on my friend with the National Action Network, Mr. Bryce Graham, who's going to share a few words. Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Elvin. Why are we here? We are here because injustice is here. For over 23 plus odd days, our governor has delayed people in a special election for a successor of Congressman Alcee Hastings. So we came today to let our governor know that wherever there is injustice, we will show up and we will speak out. We should not have a delay in a seat such as Congressman Hastings, because there is a variety of ride spread that is on the table. And so we come today to tell the governor to call the election, because it is a disenfranchisement to 800,000 people from Broward County to Palm Beach County. And so today we say we will not roll over and play dead as if there is nothing going on in Washington. And so today we say, Governor DeSantis, call the election. Justice denied is justice delayed. Thank you.
At this time, I will be happy to take any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
Yes, Reverend Dowling, you made a case ethically why this should be done, a special election ASAP. But specifically within the law, there is no mention of when an election should happen. And because it's going to be decided in a court, how do you actually convince a court when there's nothing in the law that you can get a favorable verdict in federal court?
Sure, thank you for that question. First, let me say that we're calling on the governor of Florida to call the election this fall, not while the session of Congress is in. We don't want him to wait till January, because we know that these delay tactics are really an opportunity to diminish the Democratic majority so that progress won't be made. But most specifically with the law, I'm glad you asked that question. Florida Statute 100.111 talks very specifically about what happens in the case of a vacancy. And what it says is that if there is a vacancy in the United States House of Representatives, and that vacancy occurs while the House is out of session, then the governor does not have to call an election. We interpret that to mean that if a vacancy occurs while the House is in session, which it has, and the time is not de minimis, there's more than 8 months left in this session. And so we interpret that statute to mean that because it has happened while Congress is in session, he is then therefore required to call the election without delay. I also want to call attention to the fact that this is not the first time this has happened. In 2013, when Bob Wexler left Congress, then Governor Rick Scott called an election within 18 days. We're at day 24 and counting. And I looked to my left, and DeSantis wasn't there. Then I looked to my right, and he still wasn't there. Justice delayed is justice denied. Governor DeSantis called the election before the end of this fall right now.
Quick follow-up to that. Do you think a judge will interpret the law the way your people and you are interpreting the law, and your staffers and you are interpreting the law?
Well, I appreciate that question, and I wish I had a crystal ball to answer what the judge would do. But we believe that we have made a compelling argument that says to the court, when you look at what we believe is a violation of, as a plaintiff and as a voter, my First Amendment, our First Amendment right to freedom of speech, 14th Amendment, and 15th Amendment protections. And so when you look at the violation of what we believe are all of those protections, we believe that a court will decide that the governor has to do the right thing and call this election right now.
Reverend Dowling, before you filed this lawsuit, did you reach out to the governor's office or the Secretary of State to find out if there is a plan to call the election?
Well, I think that if you just look in the local paper, we can see what his plan is. His plan is to obfuscate, delay, and deny. There is no secret about that. And so I wouldn't necessarily have to reach out to the governor's office, but I'm glad you asked that question, because I have reached out to the governor's office in the past, and you know what I get? A busy signal. I have emailed the governor's office in the past to offer my assistance on working on behalf of the people of South Florida, and you know what I get? Not a return phone call. And so I would suggest that the first thing they do in Tallahassee is the people's business. And part of the people's business is responding to constituent needs. And the governor's not doing that, whether it's answering our phone calls or setting a date so that 800,000 people can have their right to vote. He has done neither. And so I don't expect that he'll do it anytime soon. Yes.
Question. Ironically, Reverend Dowling, this book that I have a copy of that you wrote, entitled Still Invisible, Examining America's Black Male Crisis in America, I covered the story, and some other news media here covered the story. You won the Florida Book Award about 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
And as a part of the winnings of that award, this book will perpetually be on display in, guess what? The governor's mansion.
Let me see that thing. I'm glad you brought that up. So, and this is not a shield to sell books. So let me just say that I did write a book called Still Invisible, Examining America's Black Male Crisis. I have the privilege of being nominated for a Pulitzer Prize in 2 categories for this work. I had the most high honor of winning the Florida Book Award 4 days before Congressman Hastings passed away. Now you will notice it says my name on the front, but it also says Congressman Alcee Hastings. He wrote the foreword for this book. In his foreword, he said, as I reach the end of my time here on earth, I'm heartened to know that my friend Elvin Dowling will pick up the baton and run the race for such a time as this. And so I will say to Governor DeSantis, if you're listening, if on the off chance that you happen to find yourself in your own library, you will see that we are already there. Elvin Dowling and Alcee Hastings are there. And if you pick up a book, if ands and buts for candy and nuts every day be Christmas, but if you picked up the book, you will see that we have great concerns, not just for South Florida, but for all of this country. We want you to actually educate yourself, Mr. Governor, on what's going on with the needs of the people in this district. We ask that you find out the concerns of the people in the Glades. We ask that you talk about the issues that are of challenge to people in Riviera Beach. We encourage you to educate yourself. Stop by your own library. Maybe you'll learn a thing or two. Any other questions? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so very much for joining us today. We want to encourage you again to help us in this fight. Bullies can be beaten. Ron DeSantis is a bully. We understand that. But the bigger they are, the harder they fall. We want to encourage you to visit our website, dowlingforthepeople.com, and to help us in this fight. One more question.
Yes, one more question. Someone told me this morning, they heard it on the news, that Donald Trump is running again in 2024.
I bet he is.
And that Ron DeSantis is going to be his running mate. And the news reached out to DeSantis' office and got no answer. I don't know that to be factual because I didn't see it myself, but it was brought to my attention. If that is the case, what are your thoughts?
Birds of a feather flock together. Those are my thoughts. They made for each other. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much. We appreciate you. God bless you. Have a great day.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.